The Duggar family built an empire on wholesome, conservative values broadcast into millions of living rooms across America. But behind the carefully curated smiles and matching outfits, cracks had been forming in that polished facade for years. And now, a seemingly innocent birthday celebration has exposed something far darker about this famous family's traditions. A hunting-themed birthday party for one of the Duggar children has ignited a firestorm of controversy, forcing fans to confront uncomfortable questions about what really goes on behind closed doors. And this heartbreaking update demands our attention because it reveals so much more than just a family gathering gone wrong. Welcome back to FAMORA, where we cover the stories that mainstream media won't touch, the hidden truths behind reality TV's most famous families. And before we dive into this heartbreaking update, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because you don't want to miss what we're about to uncover. Here's what we know. A recent birthday celebration within the Duggar family took a troubling turn when photos emerged showing a hunting-themed party for one of the younger children, and the images quickly spread across social media, sparking widespread backlash from fans and former viewers alike. But this isn't just another Duggar controversy. This is a moment that forces us to look at the entire Duggar family dynamic through a new, far more disturbing lens. The Duggar family first captured America's attention with their hit TLC show, 19 Kids and Counting, which followed Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar as they raised their massive brood in rural Arkansas. And the show presented a picture of idyllic family life built on strict religious principles, homeschooling, and traditional values. But as the years passed, the cracks began to show as the family faced multiple scandals, including the heartbreaking revelation about eldest son Josh Duggar, who was ultimately convicted on federal charges in 2021 and is now serving a lengthy prison sentence. And with the family's carefully constructed image beginning to crumble, every subsequent controversy took on new weight and significance. The hunting-themed birthday party that's now making headlines isn't an isolated incident. And this is part of a pattern that has been visible for years, because back in 2021, Jim Bob Duggar faced intense criticism when he used a photo of his then 17-year-old son Jackson holding a gun and posing with a dead deer, with the caption proudly declaring, "Jackson got a nice buck on Saturday," and adding, "Jackson is a good shot." And at the time, critics slammed Jim Bob for what they called using his underage son as a political prop as he was running for Arkansas Senate, with one commenter calling the photo graphic and cruel, and another noting, "I eat meat, so I'm not one to judge what anybody eats, but I also don't think displaying a dead animal like some sort of prize is tasteful at all." But the criticism went deeper than just the photo itself, because people began questioning why, given everything the family was going through with Josh Duggar's legal battles, Jim Bob would choose to post such an image. And as one social media user put it, "Y'all need to take a minute off social media, fill the room." And this pattern of celebrating hunting as a family activity has continued to the present day, raising uncomfortable questions about what values are being instilled in the younger generation of Duggars. Now let's zoom in on Joy Anna Duggar, the daughter at the center of this recent controversy, because Joy Anna Forsyth, née Duggar, was born on October 28, 1997, the ninth child and fifth daughter of Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar, and she grew up in the spotlight, appearing on 19 Kids and Counting from 2008, and later on the spinoff Counting On. But here's where things get interesting. In recent years, Joy Anna has started to show signs of breaking away from the strict mold her parents created. And she's been more open about her struggles, her mental health challenges, and her desire to raise her own children differently. In fact, when asked about how many children she wants, Joy Anna gave a surprising answer that seemed to directly contradict her parents' philosophy, because she said, "No, not 19. I want to be able to effectively and intentionally raise my kids for Jesus, maybe 4 or 5. And fans quickly interpreted this as a subtle dig at her parents, with one Reddit user commenting, "Oh, that was definitely a slam against Meech." And another wrote, They're slowly realizing that they weren't raised right. So, if Joy-Anna is moving away from some of her family's more extreme traditions, why is she still participating in hunting-themed celebrations? And this is where the heartbreaking realization comes in, because Joy-Anna's recent birthday celebration for her son Gideon shows how deeply these family traditions are ingrained, even when someone is trying to forge their own path. The hunting culture in the Duggar family isn't just a casual hobby, it's a core part of their identity and ideology. And it's been used as a political tool, a bonding activity for the children, and a way to showcase their traditional values to the world. But critics argue that teaching children to pose with dead animals and treating it as a celebration is not just distasteful, it's psychologically concerning. The hunting controversy is really about something much bigger than a birthday party, because it's about what the Duggar family considers normal and how they're raising their children to view life, death, and morality. And when a 17-year-old is praised for being a good shot and his kill is celebrated as a harvest, it raises questions about what values are being instilled. Because, as one commenter asked, there are many things that 17-year-olds should be doing. Clearly, they also participate in activities that most don't find appropriate for children. And the psychology of hunting as a family bonding activity is complex, because on one hand, some argue it teaches responsibility and provides food. But on the other hand, critics point out that using dead animals as trophies and teaching children to celebrate killing is a concerning form of desensitization. What makes this particularly troubling is the connection to the Duggar family's other scandals, because the family's treatment of animals, critics argue, reflects a broader pattern of how they view the vulnerable. And when children are raised to pose with dead animals and taught that violence is acceptable as long as it serves their purposes, what other behaviors are being normalized? And this is where the connection to Josh Duggar's crimes becomes so disturbing, because the Duggars created an environment where certain behaviors were normalized and where outside perspectives were actively discouraged. They shielded themselves from criticism by surrounding themselves with like-minded believers. And now, with Joy-Anna's hunting-themed birthday for Gideon, we see this same pattern continuing into the next generation. To be fair, Joy-Anna has shown signs of evolution and growth that her parents never did, because she's been open about her mental health struggles, taking a break from YouTube to focus on her well-being. And she's been seen wearing more worldly fashions and spending more time with her sister Gideon, who is also seen as one of the family's rebels. And in a recent podcast appearance with Gideon and Jeremy Volo, Joy-Anna and her husband Austin discussed how they navigate marriage and parenting, with Jeremy commending them as incredible co-hosts and noting that Joy-Anna and Gideon have been spending more time together than with some of their other siblings. But despite these changes, old habits die hard, and the hunting tradition runs deep in the Duggar family. So even a breakaway like Joy-Anna seems to be perpetuating it with her own children. This controversy raises a profound question about whether someone can truly break free from their upbringing if they continue to practice its most controversial elements. Because when Joy-Anna says she wants to intentionally raise my kids for Jesus and limit her family to 4 or 5 children, she's signaling a departure from her parents' extreme philosophy. But when she's also throwing hunting-themed birthday parties and teaching her children to celebrate killing, she's continuing a tradition that many view as problematic. And the Duggars have always been adept at painting a picture of wholesome family life while hiding the darker elements of their lifestyle. So, from Josh's legal troubles to the controversies surrounding their parenting philosophy, the family has faced multiple scandals over the years. And now, with this hunting-themed birthday party, we're seeing the next generation of Duggars repeat the pattern. The reaction from fans has been swift and emotional, with some defending the family and arguing that hunting is a legitimate part of rural life and that the backlash is overblown. As one commenter noted, it's currently hunting season, there will be males fighting, and too many jumping into roads, that's why they have seasons. But others have expressed deep disappointment, particularly in Joy Anna, because she better throw that shade at Jim Bob and Michelle. One Reddit user wrote about Joy Anna's comments on family size. And I hope this means a better quality of life and care for her children. There's still so much work to be done. And the sense of disappointment is palpable because Joy Anna was seen by many as one of the more sympathetic Duggar daughters, someone who might be able to break free from the family's more toxic patterns. But this hunting-themed celebration suggests that some traditions are harder to shed than others. What does this mean for the children involved? Because the Duggars have always raised their children in an environment of strict control, limiting outside influences, and controlling what their children are exposed to. And this creates an echo chamber where extreme views and behaviors are normalized. So for children like Gideon, growing up with hunting as a celebrated family activity is just another part of the Duggar tradition. But as these children grow older and encounter the wider world, they'll face a choice, accept their family's values, or question them. And we've already seen some of the Duggar children, like Gideon and to some extent Joy Anna, begin to distance themselves from certain aspects of their upbringing. But as Joy Anna's hunting-themed birthday demonstrates, the journey away from childhood indoctrination is rarely a straight line. But let's step back and look at the full picture of why this hunting controversy strikes such a nerve with so many people, because the criticism of this hunting-themed birthday goes far beyond just personal taste. It touches on something deeply uncomfortable about the Duggar family's entire worldview and how they've chosen to raise their children in the public eye. When critics pointed out the juxtaposition of a theme focused on killing something for an event that's celebrating life, they were articulating a fundamental discomfort with how the Duggars seem to celebrate violence as a family value. This isn't just about hunting itself, which many people in rural communities view as a legitimate activity. It's about what it represents when a family with such a troubled history continues to normalize activities that involve children celebrating the taking of life. The fact that this came from Joy Anna, who many fans had hoped was breaking away from her family's more problematic patterns, makes it particularly disheartening for those who have followed her journey and rooted for her growth. Some fans even compared Gideon's party to the way Jessa celebrates her children's birthdays, noting that at least Joy Anna wrapped the presents, which is a stark commentary on how low the bar has been set for this family when it comes to normal parenting practices. The deeper tragedy here is that Joy Anna's evolution has been genuinely significant in many ways, and she has spoken openly about the darkest periods of her life, revealing just how much turmoil she has endured while trying to find her own path. During a recent appearance on the Unplanned podcast, Joy Anna became emotional as she recalled the super hard postpartum period following the birth of her third child, Gunnar, in May 2023, describing it as the darkest time of my life when she was dealing with hormone changes while simultaneously feeling like my family was just falling apart. She spoke through tears about how her siblings and parents were going through such difficult times, and she came to a point where she asked herself, what is even real? What do I believe? Before entering what she called a rebellion phase, where she began questioning her faith and everything she had been taught. This period of questioning was triggered in part by the release of her sister's memoirs, with Jill's Counting the Cost and Ginger's Becoming Free Indeed both coming out while Joy Anna was navigating her postpartum struggles. When she read Ginger's book, Joy Anna began to examine her own relationship with spirituality and realized that my whole Christianity was always a checklist, where she felt she had to read her Bible and pray just to check off boxes rather than having a genuine faith. This realization, coupled with her family's very public unraveling, led her to question everything she had been taught, and she described how she never believed she was going to question her faith until she reached a point where she realized she wasn't perfect, and you don't have it all together, and your world's falling apart. The family's unraveling that Joy Anna referenced has been nothing short of catastrophic, with legal troubles that have decimated the Duggar empire and exposed the dark reality behind their carefully constructed image. The Duggars were introduced to the world with 19 Kids and Counting premiered in 2008. But their legal troubles actually began before the show even aired, when Josh Duggar was investigated in 2006 for serious allegations. In 2015, when the police report was released, TLC canceled the show, and Josh, then 27, issued a statement saying he acted inexcusably and had sought counseling, while Jill and Jessa came forward and said the family had already forgiven Josh and moved on. But the family's problems were far from over, because in April 2021, Josh was arrested by U.S. Marshals and charged with serious federal offenses, and in December 2021, a jury found him guilty. He was sentenced to more than 12 years in federal prison, with his release currently set for 2032, and his family members, including Joy Anna, watched him receive that sentence in the courthouse. This pattern of allegations spanning decades and involving multiple Duggar siblings has destroyed the family's reputation and forced the remaining members to confront some extremely painful questions about their upbringing and their parents' failure to protect them. And yet, despite all of this, the hunting tradition continues. Joy Anna's husband, Austin, has been an avid hunter for years, and the couple has faced criticism for it before, with Counting on critics slamming him for hunting and Austin firing back angrily, saying, "So now you are a conservationist that knows when the herd is to be thinned and when it doesn't," before adding that professionals get paid to make those decisions and he would leave it up to them. Joy Anna herself has been hunting with her husband, and when she went elk hunting in October of one year, critics slammed her for it, but she continued to participate and support the activity. In fact, hunting has been such a central part of their relationship that Joy Anna even missed Austin while he was on a hunting trip for her birthday one year, commenting, "Yay, that is gorgeous, miss you," on his hunting photos. This is where the complexity of Joy Anna's situation becomes so apparent, because she is trying to maintain her own identity and make her own choices. But those choices still include activities that many people find problematic and that are inextricably linked to the family culture that caused so much damage. The fact that she has been willing to question her faith and her upbringing, to wear shorts and pants despite her parents' strict dress code that forbade women from wearing anything but skirts and dresses, and to limit her family size to a number she feels she can parent effectively. All of these are signs of genuine growth and rebellion against the toxic elements of her childhood. But the hunting-themed birthday celebration for Gideon raises uncomfortable questions about whether a person can truly escape the patterns they were raised with, even when they consciously try to do so. Joy Anna has been very clear about wanting to raise her children differently, saying she wants to effectively and intentionally raise my kids for Jesus, and that she sees limiting her family size as part of doing that effectively. She has also been open about her mental health struggles and her desire to be a different kind of mother than the one she had. But when we see her throwing a hunting-themed birthday party for her 8-year-old son, it's hard not to wonder whether the cycle is truly being broken or whether some patterns are simply too deeply ingrained to escape. The Duggars have always been incredibly skilled at presenting a wholesome image while hiding the darker elements of their lifestyle. And even Joy Anna's hunting-themed party can be seen through that lens, a celebration that appears innocent on the surface, but carries with it all of the uncomfortable associations that come with this family's history. The question for Joy Anna, and for all of the Duggar children who are trying to forge their own paths, is whether they can truly separate the positive aspects of their upbringing, the love of nature, the outdoors, and their family traditions, from the toxic elements that have caused so much harm. What makes this particularly heartbreaking is that Joy Anna has shown such genuine vulnerability about her struggles, and she's been so honest about how hard it has been to break away from her family's patterns. She has said that she initially never believed she was going to question her faith until her world was falling apart, and that the process of questioning was both painful and ultimately good for her growth. She's also been honest about the fact that she didn't just have one moment of clarity and then everything changed, but rather that her evolution has been a process, one that is still ongoing and has involved many difficult moments. The hunting-themed birthday for Gideon might be an example of that ongoing struggle, a moment where, despite her best intentions, she fell back into patterns that were comfortable and familiar, even if those patterns are problematic from an outside perspective. It's a reminder that real change is rarely linear or simple, and that even someone who is consciously trying to break away from their upbringing will sometimes find themselves repeating the very things they're trying to escape. When we consider the broader Duggar family context, it becomes even more clear why this hunting-themed birthday has struck such a nerve with fans who have been following this family for years. The Duggars have always presented themselves as a model of conservative Christian values, with their large family and their strict dress codes, their courtship rules, and their emphasis on traditional gender roles. But behind this carefully constructed image, there has always been a darker reality, one that has become increasingly impossible to ignore as more information has come to light. The hunting tradition is just one small part of this larger picture, but it's significant because it represents how the family's values are being passed down to the next generation. When Joyanna throws a hunting-themed birthday party for her son, she is participating in a family tradition that goes back decades, and she is teaching her children that this is something to be celebrated and valued. This is the same family tradition that led Jim Bob to post that photo of Jackson with his kill during a political campaign, using his children as props to project a certain image. The question of whether Joyanna can truly break free from her family's patterns is one that many fans are asking, and the answer is complicated. On one hand, she has made significant changes in her life. She's limited her family size, she's worn clothing that her parents would disapprove of, and she's been open about her mental health struggles in a way that her parents never were. She's also been more willing to question her faith and to examine whether the beliefs she was raised with are truly her own. But on the other hand, she's still participating in hunting-themed celebrations. She's still married to a man who is an avid hunter, and she's still raising her children in an environment where hunting is normalized and celebrated. It's possible to see this as a sign that she hasn't fully escaped her family's influence, or it's possible to see it as a sign that she's still in the process of figuring out who she is and what she believes. The truth is probably somewhere in between, and it's likely that Joyanna's journey is still unfolding. What's particularly striking about this controversy is the way it highlights the complexity of escaping a controlling upbringing. Joyanna has spoken openly about how her family's unraveling forced her to question everything she had been taught, and she described that process as both painful and ultimately good for her growth. But she also acknowledged that she didn't just have one moment of clarity and then everything changed, but rather that her evolution has been a process that is still ongoing. This is such an important point because it challenges the narrative that people can simply choose to break free from their upbringing and everything will instantly be different. The reality is that change is hard and it's often messy, and it involves making mistakes and falling back into old patterns. Joyanna's hunting-themed birthday for Gideon might be one of those moments where she fell back into an old pattern, but that doesn't necessarily mean she hasn't made progress in other areas of her life. The Duggar family has always been a study in contradictions, and Joyanna's situation is a perfect example of this. She has shown real growth and a willingness to question the beliefs she was raised with, but she's also still participating in activities that are deeply connected to her family's problematic culture. This doesn't mean she's a hypocrite or that she hasn't made any progress. It just means that change is complicated and that even someone who is trying to break free will sometimes find themselves repeating the patterns they were raised with. The hunting-themed birthday party is a reminder that the Duggar family's influence extends far beyond just their religious beliefs or their dress codes. It reaches into every aspect of their lives, including how they celebrate their children's birthdays. For fans who have been following the Duggar family for years, this controversy has been a difficult one to process. Many people have rooted for Joy-Anna, hoping that she would be able to break free from her family's toxic patterns and create a healthier life for herself and her children. And in many ways, she has done that. She's been open about her struggles, she's questioned her faith, and she's made choices that would have been unthinkable for a Duggar daughter just a few years ago. But the hunting-themed birthday party is a reminder that breaking free is not a one-time event. It's an ongoing process, and it's one that involves many small choices and moments of decision. Every time Joy-Anna chooses to participate in a hunting-themed celebration, she is making a choice about the values she wants to pass on to her children, and that choice has implications that go far beyond just one birthday party. Ultimately, the tragedy of this situation is that Joy-Anna is caught between two worlds. She wants to be a different kind of mother than her own mother was, and she's made real progress in that direction, but she's also still deeply connected to her family's culture, and some of that culture is so ingrained that it's almost impossible to escape. The hunting tradition is just one example of this, but it's a powerful one because it represents so much of what the Duggar family stands for: their connection to the outdoors, their traditional values, and their willingness to use their children as props to project a certain image. When Joy-Anna throws a hunting-themed birthday party, she is participating in all of that, even if she doesn't consciously intend to. So, what does this mean for the future of the Duggar family? It's hard to say, but what's clear is that the family is at a crossroads. The older generation, Jim Bob and Michelle, are unlikely to change their ways, and they'll probably continue to promote hunting and other traditional activities as part of their family's identity. But the younger generation is starting to question things, and some of them are making real changes in their lives. Joy-Anna is a prime example of this. She's questioning her faith, she's limiting her family size, and she's being more open about her struggles. But as the hunting-themed birthday party shows, she's still struggling to fully break free from the patterns she was raised with. The question of whether she will eventually be able to do that remains to be seen, but what's clear is that her journey is far from over. For the children growing up in this family, the stakes are incredibly high. They're being raised in an environment where certain behaviors are normalized and celebrated, and they're being shielded from outside perspectives that might challenge those behaviors. For children like Gideon, growing up with hunting as a celebrated family activity is just another part of the Duggar tradition. But as these children grow older and encounter the wider world, they'll face a choice: accept their family's values or question them. Some of them, like Ginger and to some extent Joy-Anna, have already started to question things, and others may follow in their footsteps. But for now, the hunting-themed birthday party is a reminder that some traditions die hard, and that even the most rebellious Duggar children are still influenced by the culture they were raised in. The Duggar family story is ultimately a story about the difficulty of change and about how hard it is to break free from the patterns we're raised with. Joy-Anna's hunting-themed birthday party is just one small chapter in this larger story, but it's a chapter that reveals so much about the challenges that the Duggar children face as they try to forge their own paths. Whether Joy-Anna will eventually be able to fully break free from her family's patterns remains to be seen, but what's clear is that her journey is still unfolding, and it's